Budget talk dominates Ottawa as Carney tries to secure support. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The Liberals are raising the prospect of another election, maybe in just a matter of weeks. Cornered by the press gallery on Parliament Hill, Government House Leader Steve McKinnon claimed that based on what he's heard from the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives, he's not sure the upcoming federal budget will pass, which would trigger another election.
What I'm seeing in Parliament worries me. We have two opposition parties principally that aren't taking this matter very seriously. Canadians are looking for certainty. We had an election 6 months ago. Canadians are looking for predictability, stability, and especially a plan. We intend to present a plan to Canadians to deal with this very critical moment in our history. And what we're seeing is our opposition parties, the Bloc Québécois, who, without having even read the budget, eliminate the possibility that they will support it, and the Conservatives making just ludicrous demands with respect to the budget.
McKinnon would go on to say the Liberals don't want an election so soon after the last one, and he suggested that if there is an election over this budget, that's on the opposition.
We have a minority government, but we believe we have a mandate. And when I see opposition parties not ruling out the possibility of voting for the budget, that's starting to worry me, but I think it's them that are misreading the mood of Canadians. If an election is necessary, we would obviously, reluctantly, because we don't think Canadians want an election, but election there will be. It's the opposition parties who have that decision in their hands.
As it stands right now, the Liberals have 169 MPs. That's 3 shy of what's needed to pass the budget, so they're going to need support from one of the other parties. The Bloc Québécois has already made a list of demands that the Liberals are dismissing. It's unlikely, but not out of the question, the Conservatives would support a budget with a massive budget deficit. So the most obvious dance partner is the NDP. But the NDP is in the midst of a leadership race right now, so it's not as though the party is really in a position to fight an election. The party's interim leader, Don Davies, doesn't sound like someone who plans to be door knocking anytime soon.
I don't think Canadians want an election right now. We just had one 6 months ago. This is the first budget of a new government, so I think it's entirely up. The question of whether there's an election is entirely up to Mr. Carney. As the leader of a government with a minority in Parliament, it's up to him to craft a budget that can win the support of at least one opposition party. That's his job. So, for Mr. McKinnon to say he's worried, well, that has me worried because the government should be reaching out to all the parties and working collaboratively to make sure that they can get enough votes to have the budget passed.
If there's one thing that could secure NDP support for the coming budget, it might be more resources for the party. The NDP lost official party status as a result of its poor showing in the last election that has left the NDP financially crippled and absent from much of the debate on Parliament Hill. And we know the NDP has been asking the Liberals for help. Here again is Don Davies.
And, what we've asked for is not money for extra salaries for us. It's to hire some staff so that we can perform our parliamentary functions, which we think is important, especially in a minority parliament where, Parliament, it's complex, it moves fast, it changes. And, for us to be able to participate meaningfully, it's important that we have sufficient staff. I would point out as well, in every legislature in this country, routinely, governments provide resources and give party status to parties with less than the regular number. Conservatives have done it to Liberals. Liberals have done it to the NDP. The NDP's done it to Greens. This is a convention in this country. So it's not unusual for a party like ours, who had 1.2 million votes, is nationally represented in a minority parliament, to say, look, we need some resources to help us carry out our work on behalf of Canadians.
Budget Day in Ottawa is November 4th, 2 weeks from yesterday. Ahead of that big day, the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has been sparring in the House with the Finance Minister Francois Philippe Champagne over the government's spending plans.
The reality is today we learned that inflation is again on the march. All four measures of inflation are above Bank of Canada's targets. Two are outside of and above the acceptable range. Food price inflation is rising 2 times the rate that Bank of Canada targets. No wonder we have 2 million people lined up at food banks every single day. This inflation has exploded since this Prime Minister doubled the deficit. Will he reverse his inflationary deficit and taxes in this coming budget?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I think we all know in this side of the House and Canadians, math might not be the cup of tea of the Leader of the Opposition. Neither may be economics, Mr. Speaker. But let me quote one of the authority in the world, which is the Director General of the International Monetary Fund, Mr. Speaker. She said just last week, then we have countries in the G7 that are in a better position. Germany and Canada stand up in that regard, Mr. Speaker. Both Germany and Canada recognize that this is a very testing time and they need to use their fiscal space.
We will hear from Prime Minister Mark Carney later today on the federal budget. He's expected to attend question period today in a couple of hours from now. We are also learning he will have a meeting with Pierre Poilievre at 4:30 Eastern Time to talk about budget support. And he has also scheduled a national address for this evening about the budget that is supposed to happen at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
The day Canada's Auditor General releases a big report is never a good day for the sitting government. The Auditor General doesn't usually look at everything that's going well with the government. Rather, it's usually a long, long list of all the ways the government is messing up and wasting our money. This time around, the Auditor General set her sights on the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency. Karen Hogan says her staff found the agency answered only 18% of calls from taxpayers in a timely manner, and only 17% of general inquiries about individual tax matters were accurate answers.
That I can appreciate the frustration in trying to reach an agent at the Canada Revenue Agency. Waiting twice as long as last year, or on average 31 minutes, is a long time to wait. And then only if you're asking about a personal income tax question or a general one, you're unlikely to get an accurate response. You're correct. In 2017, we did look at the Canada Revenue Agency, which is why we followed up to see whether they had improved on accuracy and timeliness. While there have been some improvements over time, the fact that now calls are being recorded allowed us to actually triage the kind of testing that we did. And when a call was about something specific related to your account, when will my tax return be assessed? When can I expect to receive a GST return? You were getting accurate responses. But it was when you called to ask general questions. So, for example, a member of my family passed away in December. When should I file their tax return? That kind of information was inaccurate. And in a system where Canadians have to voluntarily fill out their tax returns, I think they should expect to reach CRA and get accurate information when they talk to an agent.
The Canada Revenue Agency is one of the largest government agencies in terms of employment. It has more than 53,000 employees. There's been downsizing. About 6,500 employees were cut in the last year or so, and there were staff reductions at many CRA call centers across the country. Hogan said the CRA really needs to concentrate on improving its service standards, whether that's Canadians who want to talk to a live person or Canadians who prefer to access their own information online.
I think funds are needed to invest in the tools. I think there are Canadians who would prefer the self-service option. would be really happy dealing with the chatbot or just doing it on their own through my account. And then there are others who really want to talk to an agent. So you need to be able to improve the services in both areas. But as I mentioned previously, I think it's a bit of the culture of prioritizing a call volume and adherence to a schedule instead of really prioritizing quality and completeness of answers. And just that would have an impact once you get to an agent getting a more accurate response.
Recently, the government announced a 100-day action plan to improve call wait times and the accuracy of information. Wayne Long is the cabinet minister responsible for the Canada Revenue Agency. He suggested the fixes at the CRA are starting to show spectacular results.
There's absolutely no doubt that Canadians deserve timely, accurate, and access to their questions. And when they call CRA, I mean, it's been very, very clear that the service levels have not been where they should be. So we have instituted a 100-day plan. I was sworn in on May 13th. A lot of the Auditor General's work was done prior to that. And, we have regular meetings with Commissioner Hamilton. We are holding CRA to account. The 100-day plan is showing, I think, spectacular results so far. We've got a lot of work to do. We're up to 77% of calls answered now. We're looking upstream what we can do, whether it's, looking how you can unlock your account. We're looking at AI options.
On the problems with Canadians getting the wrong information when they speak to a CRA agent, Wayne Long seemed to suggest the Auditor General's methodology might not be right.
They surveyed 167 people. The CRA, looks in surveys 100,000 people per year. I know she came up with 17%. A lot of them were non-tax related. They weren't specific file-related questions. For example, if somebody called and said, when do you file, when can I file my tax? And they said April 30th. Let's assume April 30th fell on a Sunday for the sake of argument. Well, is that inaccurate information? That would be included. So again, it was 167 people, but let's be clear. We've got a lot of room for improvement. We know it, we accept the report, and we're going to do better.
The service standard for the Canada Revenue Agency is to answer the phone within 15 minutes, 65% of the time. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow
Returns on News Radio.
The ratings are in, and the Toronto Blue Jays are a home run. According to Sportsnet, Game 7 of the American League Championship Series between the Jays and the Seattle Mariners was the most watched Toronto Blue Jays game on Sportsnet in its history. With an average of 6 million viewers, the previous record a little more than 5 million viewers for Game 6 of the 2015 ALCS when the Jays played the Kansas City Royals. At around 11 o'clock Eastern Time was when viewership peaked at more than 8 million viewers. That was when Jeff Hoffman was on the mound for the Jays in the ninth inning, and he struck out the side. For the entire series between the Jays and Mariners, the average audience was 4.4 million viewers. Game 1 of the World Series set for Toronto this Friday night against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Speaking after just eliminating the Seattle Mariners, Jays manager John Schneider was asked for his thoughts on having to face what many baseball experts think is the best team in baseball in the Dodgers. And he kind of used an old sports cliche. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think to get to where you want to go, you got to beat the best, right? Whether it's talent, payroll, whatever you want to call it, man, they're a damn good team. We saw them 3 games, and that's it this year. But they got Hall of Famers up and down, top of their lineup, you know what I mean? And they got really, really good starting pitching and really good relievers. So I truly think that the best 2 teams are left standing, for a variety of different reasons. And I'll never count my guys out of any series, you know what I mean? It's going to be fun. They're going to be up for it. There's going to be some big swings and ebbs and flows in it, I'm sure, but I'm just thrilled for the guys that they get the opportunity.
The Jays have been branded Canada's team, and John Schneider, who's been with the Jays for 24 seasons, He's just fine with that.
Special, we're the only team that gets to experience that, and we're the only team that has the following that we do, and the viewership that we do. I think guys don't realize that sometimes, but from coast to coast to have this team to grasp onto is really cool. And it's easy for me to say that because I've been part of it for a long time, and I felt the connection when I was managing in Vancouver, you know what I mean, as a minor league affiliate, as a Canadian big league team too. So it's special for everyone that's involved with our organization.
Do you expect that, do you expect that it might grow into a bit of a Canada versus America spirit, not just Canada versus the Dodgers?
I don't know, maybe. We'll see, but I know it'll be the Blue Jays versus the Dodgers. That's kind of how we're going to look at it, knowing that we have a whole country behind us. But I'm not quite sure how that'll unfold, but I know that these guys in there know that they're representing the country too.
The Jays are obviously the hottest ticket in Toronto right now. World Series tickets went on sale yesterday. They sold out in 30 minutes. And on various reseller ticket websites, they are commanding huge premiums over the face value. Prices for the primo seats, where the rich and beautiful people will be sitting, they're running into the 5 figures. Think $10,000 and up. And even seats in the upper level are going for thousands of dollars. Again, a reminder, Game 1 of the World Series this Friday, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Game 2 just the following day on Saturday, same time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And on Sportsnet, of course, and all across the Jays radio network, including the radio station that you're listening to right now. Go Jays, go. Coming up, it's time for our Wednesday Newsday political panel. There is so much to discuss today. All Island edition today again. Ashton Arsenault will be with us from Crestview Strategy, Jordan Paquet from Bluesky Strategy Group, both with a long history of working on Parliament Hill, and they've seen a few federal budgets in their time. Are we going to have an election over this federal budget? We'll talk about that. All the reaction to comments that Pierre Poilievre made about the RCMP and Justin Trudeau as well. All ahead on our Newsday panel, coming up right after the latest breaking news. You're on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It is time for the Wednesday Newsday political panel. Ashton Arsenault is partner at Crestview Strategy. Welcome back, Ashton. Good to hear from you.
Good to be here, Rob.
And you can say hello to your Island colleague, Jordan Paquet, Vice President, Bluesky Strategy Group. How are you, Jordan?
Great. How are you, Rob?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, great to hear from both of you. Well, let's listen to Steve McKinnon together. He is the government House leader, and he says he's worried about the budget not passing. Let's listen to a little bit of him.
What I'm seeing in Parliament worries me. We have two opposition parties, principally, that aren't taking this matter very seriously. Canadians are looking for certainty. We had an election 6 months ago. Canadians are looking for predictability, stability, and especially a plan. We intend to present a plan to Canadians to deal with this very critical moment in our history. And what we're seeing is our opposition parties, the Bloc Québécois, who, without having even read the budget, eliminate the possibility that they will support it, and the Conservatives making just ludicrous demands with respect to the budget.
Ashton, what do you think is going on with that?
Yeah, I think, at a high level, we know the budget's going to be a terribly large deficit. $100 billion might not actually be out of the question at this point, in addition to some long overdue cost reduction measures. So, the challenge that scenario presents is that it's difficult to find a dance partner in a minority situation. And look, this is what we're seeing in real time, a government that is extremely poor at working across party lines. They have no real relationship with the Bloc, which is a terrible blunder, in my opinion. A government that hates its minority status and they've had a tremendous challenge moving legislation through the House. All in all, it's a really bad combination. And look, I would just say to the government House leader and to the Prime Minister himself, if the Liberals won an election, they should just call an election. I doubt they will, because I think they understand that Canadians don't want one. But the one ace maybe they have up their sleeve is an ongoing NDP leadership race, right? So it could create a scenario where there are abstentions during a vote on the budget, perhaps, which creates some interesting scenarios with respect to the House math. But all in all, just terribly bad management by the government that has a very strong minority. They really should not be in this situation at all.
Okay, interesting. What do you think, Jordan? What's going on with comments like that from McKinnon?
Yeah, I think he's just kind of testing some of the water to get ahead of it. I agree with Ashton that I mean, there could be some abstentions. Difficulty is going to be what's actually in the budget for a party like the NDP. Are they going to start gutting civil service jobs when you're going to have unions out there protesting? Is that something that certain NDP members are going to be willing to stand up and vote in favor of, or will they just abstain and kind of let it pass? Could the government engineer its own defeat? They certainly could, but I think it is a bit early for that. I would tend to see something like that happening next year on the budget when they want to actually go for it and get a full majority. But look, we've heard that the government's trying absolutely everything in their power right now, including giving some overtures to opposition members, possibly enticing them to cross the floor. I don't know if that's in the cards either. I guess we'll see what happens. But they don't need that many people to actually sit out to get the budget to pass. So it could just be a matter of a couple of people are away, having to twist their ankle going to the House or something like that. Even with remote voting, I think there's some ways that they'll just manage to get the budget through.
Okay, we're getting word today that the Prime Minister is going to meet with Pierre Poilievre this afternoon at 4:30 Eastern time. What do you read into that, Ashton?
Yeah, I gather he's also meeting with Blanchet as well. It's probably to pre-position with them what they can expect to hear in his primetime speech this evening. We've been working the phones pretty hard on this all morning, I'll be honest with you, and it seems like it's going to be pretty wide-ranging, sort of national unity, one Canada, an update on Canada-US, maybe a little rah-rah given the fact that the Blue Jays are off to the World Series. So, it could also, just be due diligence to give them a heads up on, things they might consider supporting in a budget. Jordan just mentioned, layoffs and the like. We've also been told that workforce adjustment calls are happening across government today. So there are public servants in Ottawa that are about to be laid off.
Oh, really?
So to the extent that, that could pull a Conservative Party of Canada on side for supporting a budget, I highly doubt it just because of the deficit number alone. But there's a lot of things happening all at once, and the outcome at this point looks a little bit murky.
Okay. Wow. 4:30 meeting, though, with Poilievre. What do you think is going on there, Jordan?
Yeah, look, I think it's just on both their parts. I'm sure Poilievre has offered to meet on the budget at any point, and he wouldn't look good to turn down a meeting with the Prime Minister like that. And similarly, the Prime Minister allows to show that he's reaching out to other parties and show leadership. So I wouldn't read too much into the specifics of it. I agree with Ashton, just on the deficit number alone, it's going to be very hard for the Conservatives to support the budget no matter what's in it. But I do see a situation happening potentially like it was when Stephen Harper was in power, around 2009 and 2009, 2010, before he had the majority, when basically Liberals said, yeah, we're opposed to the budget, but we're just going to basically let it pass. Because we don't want to fight an election. We don't think Canadians want an election right now. So Harper in those days was operating under kind of a de facto majority. I would see a similar situation playing out potentially in this particular scenario too.
Okay. I'll run down another scenario for you, but we'll wait when we come back. I may be off my rocker. I've been off the rocker before, but I'll run it by you anyway. When we come back on our Newsday panel here on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
With our Wednesday Newsday political panel with Ashton Arsenault from Crestview Strategy and Jordan Paquet from Bluesky Strategy Group. Let me run this scenario by you. The Liberals wouldn't mind to have an election, and they may even orchestrate their own defeat. And here's why. The NDP's problems are the NDP's problems, not the Liberals' problems. And so what if they don't have a leader? That's not the Liberals' fault. And here's a chance to, once and for all, really stick a dagger into the NDP's heart. It's politics. It's ruthless. And Pierre Poilievre, it's one thing for him to lose one election as the Conservative Party leader, but it really would damage him if he lost two. The Prime Minister is more popular than the opposition leader. So here's a chance to really damage the long-term prospects for Pierre Poilievre. Win a majority, and we don't have to deal with either party, and it's a brand new political ball game come the new year. Crazy? What do you think, Jordan?
I think that's a pretty good political strategy, Rob. I got to congratulate you on that. It's if you were kind of working in a Liberal boardroom, that could be enticing. I think, look, it's going to take a little bit more time for Prime Minister Carney to put his own stamp on the party. I think there are some dead weights in the Liberal caucus and in the cabinet that he would probably also like to get rid of. And I think that could be another element of this too. Maybe he wants to bring in his own people. But I guess we haven't seen a ton of that yet, and who's sort of waiting in the wings ready to step in and run. So I do think he wants to put his own stamp on the party. I think he wants to get his own majority government his own way. But yeah, look, the scenario you suggested is a pretty conniving strategy, I think, if someone came up with it.
Okay. What do you think, Ashton?
Well, I didn't disagree with the supporting information. I just disagree with the scenario. And I think there's a couple of, competing fact points that are working against the Liberals. It's simply too soon since the last election. The country's not facing some sort of grave constitutional crisis or, imminent intrusion from foreign lands. And quite frankly, it is a pretty strong minority government that the government finds itself in. So I'm kind of hard-pressed to come up with the appropriate phrasing for how the government would sell this to the Canadian public. And further, the polls and the numbers have shifted quite a bit, not crazy amounts, but quite a bit since Election Day. And, they've been trending now towards a point where a majority government is certainly not a guarantee if the Liberals were to pull a plug. But I'll go back to what I said earlier. The Liberals want an election. They should just call an election.
Okay.
But I think they understand as well as I do, Canadians don't want one right now.
The budget, rather, is supposed to be delivered November 4th. I mean, we're talking about less than 2 weeks from now.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 2 weeks. Isn't this already written yet? Isn't this budget? I mean, think about all the work that's gone into this. Isn't this budget already written yet? So what do you think, Jordan? You would know about that.
Yeah, look, by and large, most of the hundreds of pages of the budget are done and baked in and written. There's still just a few other items that I think are still kind of being worked on, some things that are still being costed out, and then some of the other big things where possibly, especially if they're looking at around potential job cuts and what the political fallout is going to be from that inside the civil service. So I think they're going to have to do their due diligence, whatever that looks like. To actually go through some of these remaining pieces of it, and I think still test some of it. I mean, I think as we might talk about later, the Prime Minister's giving a speech tonight, and as Ashton referenced before, are they going to put some trial balloons in that as well and see kind of how those land? So I think, yeah, it's mostly written in the sense of that, but there's still just a few other pieces that can still be added or removed at that matter.
Ashton, what do you think? I mean, isn't it getting rather late in the game to be making big changes to a budget?
It absolutely is. The vast majority of it will have been done and dusted by this point for sure, particularly some of the more technical items. But I think there are open questions that remain around, how much, how quickly, or how little, how quickly. And those are projections that you can stretch out over big periods of time, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. What do we want the budget to look like in 15 years' time? How much are we going to remove from the deficit 1 year versus 3 years versus 5 years? So there are some political calculations that do still have to be made. And, this is the period of time where you're going to trade those horses. So Jordan's right. This thing's basically caked in. But, the beauty is nobody really knows what's in it just yet.
Okay. Be right back. Turn our attention to Pierre Poilievre and comments he made about the RCMP, Justin Trudeau. Was that a misfire on Poilievre's part? We'll ask our panelists when we return. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Back with Ashton, Arsenault, Jordan, Paquet today here on our Wednesday Newsday political panel. Ashton, what do you think about all the reaction to what Pierre Poilievre said about the RCMP, calling the leadership despicable, covering up for Justin Trudeau, who perhaps should have been criminally charged for various scandals? What do you think about comments like that from the leader?
Yeah, I saw the media coverage around this and the anonymous, because it's always anonymous, caucus sources coming forward to say they had a problem with the comments, as if that represents some sort of badge of bravery. And I think at the end of the day, this is the official opposition being the official opposition, and I'll double down on that. I think this is Pierre Poilievre being Pierre Poilievre. He has a rather direct, sort of conflict, in-your-face style that largely serves him well. Some like it. Others don't. And my guess is this would have been a topic of conversation at the caucus meeting this morning, but those are closed-door affairs, and I'm not sure we're going to hear much more on the matter. But, it's always the, we need more civility in politics that bemoan these types of things, but it's only when it doesn't fit their agenda. So I think that this is a blip, and we're not going to hear about it much further.
Okay, but the fact that he issued a clarification, though, isn't that a sign that there may have been blowback even within the party?
Well, I mean, look, it was a podcast environment. He was, sitting on a sofa. They were riffing back and forth. It's more of an entertainment channel than anything else. But I actually didn't see the clarification, to be clear. I'm not sure what was clarified versus what wasn't. But again, I think long-lasting damage, very limited on this.
Very limited. Okay. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I would agree with Ashton largely on this. I don't think this isn't going to be a large thing. This is a small blip on the radar. Look, I think if he had the opportunity to take it back and rephrase it, perhaps he might. But the fact of the day, the fact remains, Brenda Lucky was not a good commissioner for the RCMP. And I think there's a broader commentary that can be offered amongst some of the institutions during the time of the Liberals in power, especially the Trudeau times. I mean, RCMP leadership was terrible on the SNC-Lavalin, on the Nova Scotia shooting incident as well. Even a governor general appointment they couldn't get right, and they messed that up with former GG Julie Payette. So I think some of this commentary in conservative circles gets to larger what Liberals have done to some of the more cherished Canadian institutions. But that's perhaps maybe a larger conversation. But on this particular one, yeah, I don't see it spinning off for too long.
Okay. You're both from Atlantic Canada. There's only one Liberal government in all of Canada at the provincial level. It is in Atlantic Canada in New Brunswick, but the three other Atlantic Canadian provinces have PC governments. Any idea as to why, Ashton?
Yeah, you can't put them all in the same box, so it's not monolithic, right? And I think it largely just boils down to personalities and the leaders of those parties in the three jurisdictions that you referenced. I mean, I think everybody was a little bit surprised by Tony Wakeham pulling off an upset in Newfoundland. Let's see how that government gets started off, and hopefully they make some decent progress. Tim Houston is a very, very popular fella, sort of on track with Doug Ford, quite frankly, and he also benefits from extremely weak opposition leaders. So there's a couple of different clues and threads you can pull at, but, they're all different people, and I think it's just, the situation we're in.
Okay. What do you think, Jordan, in a minute or less?
Sure, yeah, and look, I take that. Not every province is alike. Conservatives in the East Coast, PCs ran provincially, aren't really that conservative. There's not a huge ton of daylight between Liberals and PC parties provincially. It's just mostly the people that are at them. But just quickly, I think New Brunswick, they change premiers quite quickly. They tend to keep people in for one term or less. New Brunswick or Newfoundland, I think there has been somebody that had been in there for a while. Liberals been there for a while. It's time for a change. And Nova Scotia. Of course, there is no big opposition there, and I think to Ashton's point, I'll agree with that. And then PEI, there's still a leadership race happening right now in the provincial party, so we'll see what happens there.
Okay, good to hear from both of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Gordon.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks, Ed.
Talkback is coming up next on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion of the big issues of the day. Today's topic, EVs. Electric vehicles. Always a hot topic, the EVs. Why aren't more Canadians buying electric vehicles? That's what we really want to understand today with your help. Why aren't more Canadians buying electric vehicles? 1-833-668-2577. Do you have any ideas? I mean, it's not like electric vehicles are new anymore. I mean, they've been around for a long time now. The Nissan Leaf came out in 2010. I mean, 15 years ago. The Prius, although it was a hybrid, I mean, that first came out in 1997, like 28 years ago. The first Tesla Model S came out in 2012, like 13 years ago. It's not like EVs are new and mysterious, and all the big car companies are making them. And we're constantly being told EVs are the future. EVs are the future of the automotive industry. We're all going to be driving them. This is the way the world is going. We hear this all the time. But the EV business is just, it doesn't seem to be doing very well these days. From sales of EVs to the manufacturing of EVs to the grand plans that we had in this country to be a world leader in the EV supply chain. Sales are sluggish, new models are being delayed, and big Canadian EV projects are facing serious headwinds. I mean, some of them have even failed. What's happening? What are the reasons for these problems in the EV space? 1-833-668-2577. Why aren't more Canadians buying EVs? For example, StatsCan tracks sales of new vehicles in Canada, releases a report every now and then. The most recent report was for sales in August. The report came out a week ago today. And that report said Canadians purchased 167,000 new vehicles that month, in the month of August. 167,000 new vehicles. Sales up slightly overall. Car sales up 1%. Sales of new trucks up 0.5%. But of the 167,000 new vehicles that were sold that month, StatsCan says only 14,600 of them were EVs. StatsCan uses the term zero-emission vehicles. That's 8.8%. Not even 9%. Or put another way, 91.2% of all the vehicles sold during the month of August were not electric vehicles or zero-emission vehicles. And sales of EVs in the last year, they're way, way down. Compared to August of last year, sales of electric vehicles down 37%. Not an insignificant decline. What's going on there? 1-833-668-2577. Is it because of the economy? There's anxiety about the economy right now. EVs can be on the pricey side. All vehicles are on the pricey side. But people are struggling, with the cost of living and buying a new vehicle, electric or not. I mean, it's a major financial commitment. Could it be simply some people are choosing to drive their current vehicle longer or buy a used vehicle, maybe until they feel more financially secure, or they don't have a choice but to buy a new vehicle? Could it just be that? It's the economy? Is it because of the incentives, the rebates? The federal government had an incentive program. People could get a rebate up to $5,000 on an EV. That program's over now. The government has hinted that it might bring a program like that back, but it has yet to do so. Maybe there'll be something in the budget about it. But as of now, the federal rebate program for EVs has officially been terminated. Could it be that? No rebate, no sale? Is it that easy? Various provinces had their own rebate programs. Nova Scotia had one. They ended it. Ontario had a rebate program for EVs when the Liberals were in power in Ontario. Doug Ford canceled that. Alberta never had a rebate program for people who bought EVs. Some provincial governments, even some municipal governments, will give consumers rebates on home charging infrastructure, but not for the EVs themselves. The point being, rebates for EVs are harder to come by these days. Does that explain the drop in EV sales? What do you think? Or is it because of all the reasons that we've heard about for years? Concerns about how EVs perform in the winter, or so-called range anxiety. People worried about batteries running out, being stranded somewhere. All the big car companies now, they boast about how the EV can go quite a long distance before they need to be recharged. 400 kilometers or so, not unusual. Some higher-end models, 700-kilometer ranges. Haven't they solved this range anxiety problem? Or is that still a reason people are hesitant to buy EVs? What do you think? Or is it just that they're too darn expensive? Starting prices, high 30s, low 40s, 40 grand to start. EVs. We want to talk about EVs today. Why aren't more Canadians buying EVs? We had such grand visions of Canada being an EV center of excellence. The government wanted to mandate that these would be the only cars we would ever drive. But business isn't great in the EV space these days. Let's kick the tires and kick it around for a while. 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line. If you have never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio. Rob Snow, Talkback. Great to be with you here today. We're talking about EVs. Why aren't more Canadians buying EVs? What's going on there? What are your ideas on that? 1-833-668-2577. Let's start today. Dawn is a first-time caller calling from Calgary today. Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Very good, Dawn. Thank you. Good to hear from you.
Good. Yeah. Hey, well, listen. This is a good topic. I think it's timely. I'm really in favor of Carney making some sort of deal with the Chinese. I think that's going to be our advantage.
Okay.
If we can, the Americans are going to be deprived of Chinese vehicles, and if we can get something, some sort of exchange with China to on the agricultural side, that'll all be great. But let me make some brief points about.
All right.
My thoughts on electric vehicles. We're the second largest country in the world, so we rely on our cars and we rely on getting to points that are very far apart. So, range has always been an issue. And then our climate, and you hear of batteries suffer degradation in cold weather. We're not going to, as Canadians, allow ourselves to be caught out in an unreliable vehicle of any kind of sort. The second thing would be understanding how electric vehicles work. The cost of operating one. You hear all these stories about, if you're in a condo or something like that, you can't put these chargers in yourself. Maybe it's against the rules or whatever. But
might be against the condo rules. Sure. Yeah.
Or if you're in an apartment building or whatever. And the third thing would be, just understanding the history of the value of these vehicles, the cost to operate, and then the resale value. We've all heard stories about the cost to replace all the batteries, and it's hugely significant. So understanding just those points, I think, again, we're sitting back and just trying to let things settle out like any new product. We should.
You say any new product, but I mean, these are not new. I mean, these cars have been around for a long time now. Going on 20 years, some of these cars.
Well, that's true. And again, something that's mass produced can, very quickly benefit from coming down in cost. So maybe that's another thing. Some of us are waiting till they get to that proper cost point. But I still see new technology coming into these cars, from every angle. And whether you can combine that, as an older guy, I want some sort of ability to continue to drive assisted maybe in the future. So a combination of the two would, probably point me in the right direction.
All right, Don, thank you for your call. To Paul in Cambridge. Let's go to Paul up next on Talkback. Paul, why are more Canadians buying EVs? What do you think?
Well, first off, 30 years experience in the alternative vehicle system, electric, hybrid, propane, natural gas, you name it, I've worked on it. Now, you said some of these vehicles have been around for 20 years. After I hang up, I'm going to send you a link to a company, and you can take a look at a 1920s electric car. I'll send it to you after. But anyways, why do people not buy them? As long as there's some sort of a government rebate where somebody else is paying the premium for you to get that electric vehicle, then there will be a market for it. But as soon as they take away government incentives, I'll give you an example. The state of Texas. Now, I've worked on these things all over North America. The